Bigger than the B-29 Super Fortress and capable of flying 10,000 miles non-stop, the United States Army's new flying wing bomber is revealed for the first time in California. With a span of 172 feet, the strange craft houses crew, engines, and armament inside its great wings. Its unique design was worked out by Army and civilian aeronautics experts. An experimental forerunner of the big ship has flown hundreds of hours in tests. From data gathered during these flights, engineers gathered vital information for building the first of 15 of the large planes ordered by the Army. 4 huge engines geared to counter-rotating propellers will send the aerial dreadnought aloft for her test flights. 100 miles off the eastern coast of the United States, units of Admiral Mark Mitcher's mighty 8th Fleet sail in line. For this 15-ship task force, including the aircraft carriers Franklin D. Roosevelt, the Midway, and the Princeton, it's the beginning of 6 weeks of intensive maneuvers in the Atlantic Ocean. To the carrier Roosevelt comes the President of the United States. There's a traditional Navy welcome for Mr. Truman, who has interrupted his vacation cruise to spend 2 days at sea with the fleet. Secretary of the Navy Forrestal and Admiral of the Fleet Nimitz greet the Commander-in-Chief. With Admiral Mitcher, scourge of the Japanese Navy, President Truman goes on a tour of the 45,000-ton carrier, which is the mightiest in the Navy. The President chats with members of the crew. Many of them are new recruits, inexperienced, but under the rigorous training schedule ahead, they'll soon be old hands. Next morning at 4 o'clock, the carrier's planes prepare for dawn takeoffs, and the President is up to watch them. Over 100 planes rise from the 3 carriers to strike at an imaginary enemy beyond the horizon. Mission accomplished. The planes come in to land. An instructive 2 days with the fleet for America's President and the Navy's Commander-in-Chief. LaGuardia, director of UNRWA, pays a visit to the town of Climax in America's great Midwestern wheat belt. LaGuardia has come to impress the farmers with the need for wheat to prevent famine and to ask them to sell their reserve holdings before the new harvest. The wheat farmers of this Minnesota area respond to the appeal with 50,000 bushels. Trucks drive in to unload into a 25-car freight train, which will carry the grain to eastern United States ports for overseas shipment. The necessary shipping is being allocated, LaGuardia told the farmers, and the Midwestern wheat belt must and will supply the wheat. This trainload was the immediate response to UNRWA Director LaGuardia's appeal. It is part of the steady flow of grain that must be maintained until the threat of famine has disappeared in Europe and Asia. Wreckage of Midwest America's worst train disaster litters the tracks in Illinois, some 28 miles from Chicago. The second section of a fast express, unable to stop in time, plowed into the rear of the first section, which had made an unscheduled emergency stop. The engineer of the second train said that he was traveling at about 75 miles an hour at the time of the crash. 45 people were killed and more than 100 injured. The Streamliner's engine ripped through the length of the first train's rear car. Survivors are cared for by local Red Cross relief workers. Many hours were necessary to remove all the victims in one of American railroading's worst disasters. Spring finds the track stars out at the University of Pennsylvania in early competition. The broad jump is won by Fred Johnson, formerly of the United States Marine Corps. His jump of over 23 feet takes the title. Off with the gun go the entrants in the 100-yard dash. The winner in just over 9 seconds is Bill Carter of the Army Air Forces. Sam Felton of Dartmouth College winds up for the hammer throw. He throws the heavyweight 147 feet. The high hurdle relays is a team event, and teams representing 3 universities compete. Ohio State University takes the lead and holds it, beating out Oklahoma and Dartmouth to take the championship. The Luxembourg Palace in Paris is the scene of a momentous meeting. The foreign ministers of France, England, Russia, and the United States. Georges Bidault, representing France, leads the way into the Big Four conference room. Next, Soviet Russia's delegate, Foreign Minister Molotov. From London comes Foreign Secretary Ernest Bevin, bringing Britain's view to weighty discussions on peace terms for Europe. Past the palace guardsman flanking the entrance comes James F. Burns. The American Secretary of State is followed by his advisors, Senator Connally of the Democratic Party and Senator Vandenberg of the Republican Party. The conference takes place in the Victor Hugo Salon of the palace. Photographers are permitted to make their record of the historic setting before the delegates begin their work. Monsieur Bidault, acting as host, presides over the opening session. The framework for the peace treaty discussions was agreed upon at the Potsdam Conference. Last fall in London, first attempts at peacemaking were fruitless. The Paris meeting now holds the key to Europe's future. Problems concerning Italy and her fleet, Germany, the Ruhr, the Saar, Austria may come up, in addition to the mapping of peace treaties for the Axis satellite nations. First reports indicated an easing of tension, but challenging days remained for the Big Four in Paris.